Boatbuilding News, the podcast. Let's do it. Welcome to Boatbuilding News, the podcast, a series of engaging interviews with key individuals from within the marine industry. I'm excited. This is going to be epic. I am so excited for this episode. Boatbuilding News meets Explorer Yacht Guy. Hi Marcus, welcome to the Boatbuilding News podcast. It's great for you to finally be on.
Yeah, hi Holly, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on. And as you say, great to be finally on. I think the last time, or when you first invited me, I had a terrible sore throat. And so being on a podcast and not being able to speak was a bit of a challenge. So great to be finally here.
No, it's really, really good. So let's dive straight into it. So introduce yourself. Tell us about, what you do and your role at Arksen.
Marcus Munt. I'm the sales manager for the Explorer series at Arksen. The Explorer series is our large Explorer vessels. We go right up to custom, large sizes, but we have standard models of 65, 75 and 85. And then we go beyond that up to 35 meters plus with custom builds, etc. And I look after all the sales for that on behalf of Arksen.
Awesome. So tell us a bit about your journey, because Arksen's a relatively new-ish role for you, isn't it?
Yeah. When did I start at Arksen? Spring last year. Having kept an eye on Arksen, they're a really, really interesting firm, and they've grown tremendously quickly. And prior to Arksen, I've been in the marine industry for probably longer than I care to remember, really, when you think about it. But started way back a long time ago as a junior yacht broker, like a lot of people started getting into this industry in Chichester Marina, working for a big boat dealer, and sold everything from little yachts to big powerboats and everything in between. Then moved into the new boat yacht side and the new boat powerboat side. Then went off and started a brokerage business with a really good colleague and friend of mine, which we grew and grew to a number of offices across the South Coast. And we were lucky enough to sell that business. And ever since, I've been doing various roles in the marine industry. Took a brief step outside the marine industry for a couple of years, which was great. I was asked to head up a specific project, but always missed the marine industry almost as soon as I left, actually, and the sort of unique challenges and the unique atmosphere around the marine industry. And been back in it. Worked for a large charter company, a charter aggregator called Boat, when it was still in its startup stage. That was interesting times. And then joined Arksen back in the spring and been there ever since and loving it, I must say. A really, really, really good company.
Yeah, so as I do with every guest, I always do a bit of research into the company they work for, and the obvious place to start is the website. And being completely honest, usually when I go onto the guest's website of where they work, it's all pretty generic, beautiful looking renders, lovely boats, a few waves crashing, that kind of thing. And it's a bit same old, but actually, I'm going to say something really strange. I actually read the Arksen website, and I enjoyed it. I found it interesting. There was just so many elements. There's so many elements to Arksen that I didn't realise. All focusing on sort of that sustainability running through it. But I mean, is that what attracted you to Arksen?
Yeah, I mean, it's what they're doing is what the industry has been crying out for a long time, and it's not marketing, it's not greenwashing, it's not a bit of spiel because this is what we think.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is this real?
It is in the company's DNA. Everything from you look around the office and we're all drinking out of our, reusable cups. Everything we do, how we travel to boat shows, how we attend events, our personal footprint, the company's footprint. And obviously a huge part of that when you're manufacturing a product is how we manufacture that. The most obvious example is all our aluminium boats have a really high recycled aluminium content. There's some great suppliers we work with. And for example, on the Arksen 65, we're talking about an up to 70% recycled aluminium content. So it's not just something we talk about or a tagline on a website, et cetera, et cetera. It very much is in our DNA and everything we do. And of course, an aluminium vessel at the end of its life is 100% recyclable, because aluminium is 100% recyclable. So and then we go beyond that and look at propulsion, to get to the cleanest propulsion systems we can get to, which is obviously challenging because the technology is moving the whole time, but our hulls are super efficient. We do hybrid propulsion. We're working on a completely electric propulsion system, but to develop a true Explorer, electric propulsion isn't quite there yet, but of course it's moving all the time. So we're working very closely with those guys to see how we can bring that forward.
So it's a whole culture then, that's not just making a sustainable
culture across the company. You look at those enormous global brands out there. Let's take Patagonia, as they've been in the news quite a lot recently. And that ethos is very similar, where it's just built into the company's DNA. There's not we don't have a sustainability department or a sustainability officer that, focuses on just one thing. All of us are the sustainability department. All of us are the sustainability officers. It's just in everything we do, from paper-free offices to remote working to getting the train to attend, when I think we last met in person at Met's Trade, getting the train there rather than jumping on a plane, for example, just to minimise our footprint. It's in everything we do. Of course, we can always do better. And of course, there are strides that we can make as technology allows them to make us. And it's really exciting looking forward at how some of those announcements are going to look when they come, as we drive things forward, and how we can, deliver on that agenda. But as you touched on, saying our website, and thank you for those comments, is really engaging because we believe in it. We didn't just say to an agency, sustainability is really important. Let's put a little page on there. It's in everything we do. It's in all our buying decisions. It's really core to our founder, who's very actively involved in the business and ensures we are delivering on his aims, both for the business, but also in his personal ambitions.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And when you said about, traveling to Mets by train, there's probably, like you say, a lot of companies, a lot of individuals who say, who have the desire to say, I'm acting sustainably. I want to, have sustainability at the core of my decisions. But actually, let's be honest, a train all the way to Amsterdam is an inconvenience in comparison to flying. But to actually choose that inconvenience for that sustainability vision, that it's, there's probably a lot of people that travel to Metz, for instance, by plane to talk about sustainability.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And the two things don't marry up, do they?
Really interesting. And you can't, and we've also got to be honest, we can't always do it. Sometimes business requirements are, I've got to get back to the office. And unfortunately, the quickest way to do that is on a plane because of the speed involved.
Yes.
But, in excess of 50, 60, 70% of the people from Arksen that went to Metz or the Super Yacht Forum went by train. Because that is our default, it's actually a company policy. It's not just a default belief. It is company policy that these things take priority. So wherever we can, that's exactly what we do. As I say, it's not always possible. If you're going to the US, it's still pretty challenging to get there not using a plane without disappearing for 8 weeks. It's, we try and do what we can. And it's always do the best we can now and constantly try and improve. How can we do that better next time? How can we improve? Do we need to be that? Just like today, we can do this virtually. I don't need to jump in a car. I don't need to be in the office today. I can be in my lovely home office here, and we can do this and minimize our footprint while still delivering everything we need to deliver.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And also what was quite interesting is how accessible owning a boat is with you guys. I was reading about the syndicate. So, I mean, that must make it so much easier for people that, possibly can't afford the time or the money for a whole vessel just for themselves.
Absolutely. It's all about, Arksen is all about giving people the tools to go and do what they want to go and do. Be that have a great day out on the water or go for a multi-year round the world global expedition. So we have a small boat range as well, looked after by a really fantastic colleague of mine, James. And that starts at 9 meters. So, it's about empowering people and getting them on the water in whatever way we can. And there's the syndicate that you talked about, which allows people to buy a share in a vessel, because either it doesn't fit with their personal plans, their ownership ambitions, cost to get into a vessel without having to outright own the thing. We're also working on a boat club concept, which should help get more people on the water. That's still in its infancy, but very much, watch this space for announcements. It's all about giving people the tools to go and have a great time. And on the marine side, that's about getting them on the water, enjoying it with their friends, family, going to new places, whatever it might be, but getting out on the water and having a great time.
And also what was quite interesting is the, hopefully I'm calling this the right thing, Yachts for Science.
Yeah, so Arksen is a founder partner of Yachts for Science, and which is overarching. You've got Boat International are also partners, Necton are partners, and the guys at EOS. Yeah, it's a really good industry thing run by some fantastic people and driven very hard by a lady called Rosie O'Donnell, who really, gets to deliver on these things. And it's about, philanthropy can come in many, many ways. But Yachts for Science is specifically about matching. It's Tinder for scientists and boat owners. So what it'll do is it will say...
I saw that, people were putting the projects on there. Yeah, it was amazing.
And sometimes it'll be really simple, like, can you simply put this tracker on your vessel while it's repositioning across the Atlantic because you want to track sea temperature? Sometimes we've done one really recently, just at the end of last year, where Yachts for Science matched up with a boat that was repositioning, and the crew, a fixed period, I think it was once a day, took a small sample of seawater, put it in a tube, packaged it up, and then when they got to the other side, they could send these sort of days' worth of samples to the scientists, who could then say, okay, at these points across the Atlantic, this is the seawater composition, this is what we need to be monitoring, this is proof of research, or we need to do more research. And that cost the scientists nothing. It cost the boat owners nothing in terms of the boat was already doing that, the crew were already there. But it's unlocking all this research and looking at philanthropy in a way of not just getting people to write checks. It's about how can we positive actions, positive steps that get people across the line to do these things. And we've got to remember a huge amount of the world is ocean. And relatively speaking, a small amount of philanthropic money is spent on ocean research. That's changing. You've seen some huge leaders in it, really driving it. James Cameron and those sort of guys doing amazing work. But it's how can we do really simple things, because all these guys wanting to do research, and our vessels naturally lend themselves to that. So as Arksen, we really encourage all our owners to give a lot of sea time. But Yachts for Science looks across the whole super yacht market, and some of the connections and projects and vessels that are doing things are just fantastic.
But what really sort of struck me as I read through that page is how much there is still to learn about the ocean. When I was reading through some of the projects, how much we still don't know, and how much research is going into it.
And how much of certain parts of the oceans are uncharted still. You can't believe in this day and age where we can fly. Everything's on our iPhones. You can't believe that there are parts of the ocean that have yet to be charted. And so there's a huge amount to do. It's really exciting. And with these vessels that quite often do have a lot of repositioning or a lot of time, depending on the owner, on what's going on, it's just utilizing that, maximizing, often it's referred to as the sea time pledge of just give some of the downtime to your vessel, to a good cause. And we will put, or rather Yachts for Science will put researchers on board and do some great stuff.
Yeah. And how welcoming are they? When they buy, when somebody comes and purchases an Arksen boat, are they buying into that culture that you talk about, or are they just purchasing the boat because they love the look of it?
So often it's led by, this is the product for me. This is a true Explorer yacht. It's got a 7,200 nautical mile range. This ticks all my boxes. It's super efficient. It's a lovely place to spend time. It's, wonderfully appointed inside. But I also want to, by the nature of the fact I want to explore the world, I also want to look after it. I want to protect it. I want to nurture it. How can I do that? And the way we can help them do that is by saying, well, can you give some of your time to research? Have you got such and such a time where we can take the boat and do this with it? All those sorts of things. We can do that really easily. And owners across the Arksen portfolio, so right down when they're buying a smaller adventure boat, are really keen to buy into that sustainable solution, because our small boats are also aluminium. We try and steer away from GRP where we can. Again, not always possible. We're not there on the production side yet with other materials, because ultimately we have to have a customer that wants to buy the product. But we are getting there and constantly innovating, as I said earlier. But the buy-in is really high from the customer. You'd be amazed how early on in conversations with customers, sometimes for really significant large vessels, that they want to have conversations about the sustainability of aluminium or our fuel efficiency. When you're talking about a large vessel, fuel efficiency is not normally the first or second question you get asked. So it's really, really encouraging that, first of all, we're being asked those questions, but also that we've already got the answers. We're not saying, oh, well, we could design the boat in this way to get to that. I can say to someone straight away, well, at cruising speed, 26-metre Arksen 85 uses around 30 litres per hour, which is just, phenomenal when you look at the competition and what they're burning and the large engines they're using. So we're already there, and hopefully we're giving the right answers to the questions that are being asked going forward, because, we want to lead the industry. We're driven by sustainability while also ensuring everyone can get out on the water.
That's the thing with the sustainability, with, sitting down with an expert like you. Sometimes it is all about the education. So people don't realise, sometimes they think they have to have a drop off in performance or a drop off in efficiency and to be sustainable. But sitting down with an expert like you say, to answer those questions they've got can be the sort of the shift in their mindset.
Absolutely. And, those conversations, I'm really pleased to say, are happening more and more often. Really, they're not an afterthought by the client. We have a great in-house technical team led by a fantastic guy called Jim, whose knowledge is pretty much unrivaled, and bringing him into a client meeting, and the client's just eyes light up when they can see that it's in our boat building DNA. And I keep using the phrase DNA because it really is. To answer all these problems that are global issues. But it is filtering through the industry. It was great to see at the Super Yacht Forum that ran alongside METS, run by Martin Redmayne, which is a brilliant event. There were conversations being had, and someone told a story about a client conversation where they simply said, talked about air conditioning. And the client said, well, absolutely, I don't need my vessel to be constantly at such and such a temperature. It just needs to be cool. It doesn't need to be at 18 degrees at every moment. Yeah. As a result of that, the air conditioning plant could be completely changed. And as a result of that, the ship was more efficient because it was lighter. The generators were working less hard because they weren't working 5 air conditioning plants. They were working 4. And, those client conversations are coming up. And what's great is they're being led from both sides, both by us in the industry, but also the clients are coming to us and saying, how can I get out on the water and do what I want to do, but do it in the most sustainable way with the lightest footprint I can, which is really interesting. And some of the answers coming out of the industry are great. Obviously at Arksen, we really feel we're leading the way and started this journey way back, when the company was 1 or 2 employees, and it was there from the very start to answer those questions.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, I noticed on your LinkedIn, and I know we've joked about it before, that you call yourself the Yacht Explorer Guy.
Yeah.
So, your love for Explorer yachts, is that what drove your career at Arksen, or have you grown to love Explorer yachts because of your career at Arksen?
No, I think I've sold all sorts of boats in my time, as I said, earlier. But when you're getting into a large vessel, you want it to have a purpose, because with nearly all of them, there are other ways of getting to that destination. It's not about just that destination. It's about how you get there. Whereas with Explorer yachts, it is about the destination, because we can go inside the Arctic Circle. We can take you to some wonderful and fantastic parts of the world that are either really difficult to get to, or challenging to get to, or your current vessel simply won't do it, or it will just about do it, but in an extreme discomfort, and you'll find yourself causing damage to vessel systems, which obviously, you're going to be in for a refit. So Explorer yachts have always been a passion, because, they're the Land Rover Defenders of the sea. Let's be honest, you jump in them and you don't think about how can I make this journey or not? You think about how I make the journey and when do I get there, not is the tool capable of doing the job. And that's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. And again, when you're talking with clients, when talking to industry experts like you or anyone else, it's great to just be able to say, well, yeah, we can go there. Our boat can go there. And more importantly, can go there as standard. I don't sell you an Explorer yacht and then say, oh, but if you want to leave the Mediterranean, I've got to sell you all these options. You can buy our boat straight out of the wrapper, ready to go with the standard specification, and go 7,000 nautical miles in any direction you choose, make your own water, look after yourself, stay warm, stay cool if you've gone to the tropics. All of that we build in to what we call a true explorer, because we're seeing, throughout the market, even down to smaller GRP production vessels, that the explorer aesthetic is becoming more and more popular. What we want to be very clear is we're a true explorer. We are not something that is going to struggle to do the challenges you want it to do. Doesn't mean all our owners are going to go off and do totally insane things, but they like the idea that they can do if they wish, or it might be part of a life's dream to go to the Arctic once, and then it's going to take relatively normal boat-like journeys after that. It's also driven by the efficiency and the aesthetic, and it's a fantastic product. The redundancy built in, I remember it was actually the very first day, which tells you a lot about the company. The very first day wasn't to come into the office and have a cup of coffee and all the sort of niceties. It was, let's go to the shipyard, let's go to look at the product, let's go and see the technical excellence that we're building. I think within my first hour at Arksen, 55 minutes of it had been spent on board our first launch 85, looking at getting a feel for it, etc. Because that's what the company's about, building something that is truly fantastic and different.
And going in there with that love already, God, I bet it was an absolutely incredible first day. I bet it was like a kid in a sweet shop.
Absolutely. And I've got a great bunch of colleagues. The team is fantastic. Both those guys above me and alongside me. It's a really dynamic, creative place to work. And we have so much in-house in terms of technical capability. Our COO has spent thousands of hours at sea himself, so understands it from not just a technical or a sales perspective or an operational perspective, but he's been on the ground and done these things. So he knows what it's like in the Southern Ocean when all your systems fail, for example. And that's really great experience to have in one room. We don't need to necessarily go outside the company. And when we do go outside, we go to industry experts. Tom and Rob Humphreys at Humphreys Yacht Design, who do all our designs for us. We use the guys at Design Unlimited, who are just phenomenal on the interior design side and what they come up with and the creative ideas they come up with. Because again, exploring doesn't need to mean, a lot of people think, well, doesn't that mean living, in abject discomfort as if we were in a bivouac halfway up a mountain somewhere? No, because we want you to take your family with you. We want to take your friends with you. We want you to be an ambassador for these amazing places and traveling and exploring and learning and seeing. And to do that and allow that to happen, people want a certain level of comfort. So I don't think there's an Explorer yacht out there that offers our capability and our level of comfort together. I think they all have to compromise on one or the other, whereas I'm really pleased to say that we can tick all those boxes.
And it's true belief in your product. You know what I mean? When you're, I know that your job is sales, and obviously you've got to sell the product, but people can tell when they're being sold to, or when somebody genuinely believes and is genuinely passionate about their product. Do you know what I mean? And that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And particularly looking at the Explorer yacht market, for example, you have informed clients that know what they want and know what customization they want and know what they want to achieve as an end goal. And you're not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. You've got to deliver on what you say. But yeah, having this fantastic product, it's certainly great to work with and great from a sales challenge point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, earlier on in the podcast, when we were talking about the history of your work, and you said you moved away from the marine industry, but came back because you missed it so much. What is it exactly? Because I hear that sentence so much, but what is it exactly you missed about the marine industry?
I think it's it's a remarkably small industry. I think, we all know when we go to industry events, from super yacht forums, Mets trade, to, in just, where are we? A few days time. It'll be Dusseldorf at the time of recording, and we'll all see the similar faces. We'll all meet up. So it's a small industry in that sense across the globe. And I think there's a real camaraderie there, even amongst competing firms. I've got colleagues and friends at competing firms or enormous, huge global brokerage houses who I can phone up for friendly advice or to pick their brains on something. Occasionally, they'll phone me for advice. I'm not sure how useful I am when they do that. Occasionally, people do ask to pick my brains. And I think that sort of camaraderie and we move together as an industry is great. I think it's a unique industry in that perhaps, we're selling something that people don't need, unless you live in the middle of the lake, you need to get off that lake every day. You don't need a boat. We sell something that hopefully they're using for fun, for their passion, to make memories, to spend time with family, friends, to undertake incredible journeys that they've always wanted to undertake, to sort of fulfill their dreams. But we can only supply the product that does that. They need to go and do the thing that they fulfills their dream. But being part of that, being even a small part of that, is fantastic, because you're talking to somebody about their passion. It's not perhaps, when you look at other large ticket sales items, property and automotive are the obvious ones, where perhaps, it's very much the sales people are seen as the enemy. I want my dream house, but the people involved in that process may not become my friends afterwards always. I think, again, that's improved an awful lot. Whereas with us, we're supplying something that they really want. We're really happy to spend as long as we need to talking to them, coming up with the right answer. Back when I was a yacht broker, it was fascinating because quite often you'd come in and a customer would have phoned you up and said, tell me about this boat, I'd like to come and see it. And you're obviously selling that boat on behalf of an individual owner. And they will come and see that boat and say, this isn't for us for whatever reason. We need something bigger, smaller. And helping someone through that journey as almost a trusted advisor is a real privileged position, for someone to let you in and effectively say, help me spend, what can sometimes be significant amount of money it is a privilege, and I think we shouldn't forget that. It's all a part of what makes this industry unique, and it's so varied. You know, we've got guys making incredible bespoke product. You look at what Spirit Yachts do on the sailing yacht side.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful handmade product that's just superb, right through to you know, people making small boats that you can get on the water, you know, for just a few £1,000s and enjoy, and everything in between. And that's really important. You know, look at any sailing club in the country, and all the young sailors start out an Optimist, you know, which is probably smaller than the desk that most of us sit at every day. It's all about that passion and enjoyment, and being part of that is a pleasure. But to go back to sort of, you know, what's special about this industry, I think it just attracts really, on the whole, really good people. The marine industry, I think, generally speaking, everyone is friendly, trustworthy, thoroughly pleasant to be around, and experts in their own area, which is just great. I don't know of many areas where that's true.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I mean, you're painting a picture that sounds amazing. You know, dream job, great industry, you know, great product. But what are you struggling with? You know, what's challenging you at the moment?
So the biggest challenge that I think has been to all boat builders and the marine industry wider than just builders has been the supply chain issues coming out of obviously the horrible pandemic, which, touch wood, seems to be behind us now, and we're in a much better place health-wise. But then you've just got the horrendous situation in Ukraine, which again has knock-on effects, particularly, you know, I very, very early in that conflict, I remember a friend of mine who's a dealer for Brig, and I had no idea Brig was made in Ukraine. And, you know, there you are, and the people just had to up and leave the factory and leave the country. And just horrendous, which makes all problems, whatever they may be, seem insignificant. I think we can all pause and reflect on that for a moment. But the supply chain has been the biggest issue. For us, has caused some really difficult delays in getting boats on the water. Because we're product driven, we're not putting anything, you know, where we've had a supply problem where we could have gone for another product or another something to fill that gap, but of slightly lesser quality. We've always waited to get the original specified item because we specified that for a reason. It was the best thing to do that job on board that vessel. So the supply chain has caused real problems. And I suppose
you're at the forefront, you know, communicating that to the client, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're very lucky. We have a client liaison director in the office, a guy called Matthew, who's been in the industry for a long time, and is there to look after our clients and communicate all those sort of things. But it's very difficult when 2 weeks before a item was supposed to turn up, the supplier says, unfortunately, it's going to be another 8 weeks. There's nothing we can do. It's not just us, you know, we're not being put to the back of the line. They're just not there. And, you know, distributors and suppliers are doing all they can to help. And, you know, we've had some incredible help from some really big name suppliers of equipment. But ultimately, if they haven't got it, or it's not being built because of the semiconductor shortage or the raw material shortage, you know, there's just a problem. You can't do anything about that.
What can you do?
Going forward, obviously inflationary pressure is an issue. You know, we make our boats out of aluminium. The raw price of aluminium, of the quality we use and the recycled content we use, has gone up significantly. Quite right. Throughout our supply chain, wages have gone up because we work with people who treat their people really, really well. And all of that has a knock-on our costs and therefore ultimately the selling price. And that's always difficult because my job is to get as many people on the water as possible. And sometimes a price rise can move something out of a customer's requirements price-wise. So what we then try and do is tailor it back to see what we can do to work with them. Hopefully, and let's be positive for a minute, everything is going to slowly iron its way out, and we'll see a smoother, happier, more pleasant world in the next 12 months.
And then there'll be another challenge that we've not even thought about yet.
There's always a challenge.
Because that's the way of the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it also, it's part of the job is dealing with those things and overcoming them and coming up with solutions.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to, I alluded to earlier, the tech team we employ, and are in-house with us, so we can come up with solutions to that really quickly. If a client sends us an email overnight saying, "Oh, I've just seen this. Would this be better than the thing I was going to specify for the boat?" We can be on a call with them the following morning, with our technical director, with one of our project managers, answering that, coming back to them as why that might be better, or why we're doing a certain way, or what have you. It's really interesting. And there's lots of conversations around that, around the hybrid propulsion systems. People are really keen to push those to their limits, which is great. And it's great that technology is constantly sort of moving forward like that.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time that we're in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Technology is moving so quickly. And,
where we take on the Arksen 85, for example, which is, between a 12 and 14 month build time, then you've got to be looking ahead at what technology will be relevant at the point you're fitting that to the vessel. It's not what's available today. It's what do we know is coming down the line. Suppliers are very good and will tell us, we can't mention this, but something's coming down the line that's going to really fit your solution. So we can start thinking about those things behind the scenes.
Amazing. So we're in 2023, sort of first few days of the year.
Really?
What are your goals? What are your goals for this year? What do you want to achieve?
The biggest goal for us as Arksen and me personally is seeing the first of our flagship hero explorers, the Arksen 85, on the water. It's been delayed because of the supply chain issues. Should be going on the water very shortly. And we'll actually have two going on the water pretty close to each other, which is great. And
amazing.
So many clients waiting to get on board them. Press obviously dying to get on board them because we've given them sneak previews. We've had shipyard videos done by some of the leading YouTubers and behind the scenes tours that we haven't shown to the public. And we just can't wait to launch all of that content and to be able to say, this is what we've built, come and have a look at it and see just how much it backs up everything we've been telling you and how competent this product is, how special it is. That's going to be fantastic. And as a result of that, we've obviously got a whole load of events and then all the usual boat shows we'll be taking her to. Her owner plans a fantastic itinerary for her. It's going to be really exciting, really, really exciting.
Yeah, that does sound absolutely amazing. I can't wait to see the news when that hits the water for the first time. It's going to be brilliant.
Absolutely. We'll get you along, Holly, and you can have a good look round.
That's exactly the question I wanted to ask you. I just thought I'd drop an obvious hint instead.
Yeah, indeed.
So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, so this is the part of the podcast where I normally do a little round of Would You Rather. Okay. But for this year, I've decided to change it. So you're my guinea pig.
Okay.
Yeah, you are. So instead of Would You Rather, they're just going to be the curveball questions, which I've just thought of the name of on the spot there, but it's just going to be the curveball round.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes. If I don't like the question, my internet connection's gone down, but far away.
Okay. You've got one day. Travel time and expense completely irrelevant. How are you going to spend it?
For me and my family, our passion is Africa. We would go straight down to the African continent and fit in as many safaris, tours, and by that I mean in the real wilds of Africa, where it would just be my family and I doing some really special stuff. Spent quite a lot of time in Africa. I think top of the list, I'd go straight to Rwanda or Uganda to spend time with the gorillas in the mountains and go trekking to do that. I think that'd be really fantastic. I personally, it's interesting because obviously travel time and money no object. I personally don't have a desire to jump on a rocket and see space or anything like that. I think it's absolutely fascinating what's going on with that sort of thing. But both from an ecological perspective and a personal perspective, I don't have a huge desire to do that. I'd want to go and see the wilds and wonderfuls. So yes, it would be, let's say, half the day in Africa and then half the day in the Antarctic or Arctic, doing a similar thing. How we will arrange all that and
so all about
send the bill to the Boatbuilding podcast, presumably, when I've done it.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So that's so all about the nature for you then.
Absolutely.
And you didn't instantly say, I'd go on a boat. Do you know what I mean? That surprised me.
I think because thanks to having lovely clients and working for a fantastic company, I get access to some of those vessels, at times they're available. So that's great.
Yeah.
One of my colleagues was using one of our demonstrators over the Christmas holidays to take his family around the Solentine, for example. So we're very lucky in that regard. I also live by the water, so I've got a little boat on the water where I live on the south coast. And while that's very different to an Explorer, I definitely, given the parameters of your question, do that. I'm also hoping, and I'll send them a copy of this when it goes out, that the captain of vessel number 1 will invite me along to spend some sea time with them when they're on one of their repositioning or delivery trips, to spend some time on board when it's just the crew on board. But that's me dropping a subtle hint to him. So when this comes live, I'm tagging him in it and saying, Captain Ben, I need to come and have a look.
Yeah, so do I. So we can both send it. Yeah.
Really?
Sounds awesome. Okay, next question. If you left, and I'm not suggesting you should, if you left Arksen tomorrow, what legacy do you want to have left? So if you walk out the door, how do you want people to talk about you behind your back?
First, on a client side, I'd love all the clients to say, really sorry you're leaving. You're great. You fulfilled everything we needed and really looked after us. We'll be really sorry to see you go. And let's keep in touch. I think that's always the magic words when a client's happy with your job is when you're moving on and the client keeps in touch with you beyond the need to keep in touch with you. I think that's the ultimate compliment from a client, personally.
Yeah, 100%.
And
it's the same in recruitment.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's you've built a relationship there beyond the necessary. That's a huge compliment, as I say. I'd like all my clients to say he was a really fun guy to have around and a really professional, got the job done. And I think I'd really like them to all be on the floor thinking, how are we going to survive, without this guy? That's
mourn you leaving.
Absolutely, yeah.
Arksen might close. The Explorer range would be no more.
Yeah, well, there you go. You see, I need to peddle that narrative a bit more. Yeah, quite.
Well, you can't have an Explorer range without the Explorer Yacht Guy, surely.
Exactly. That's what I keep telling them. I must remember that when I go into my next pay negotiations. We must remember that.
Well, Marcus, I'm honestly astounded that boats were being built before the boatbuilding youth.
Yeah, well, quite absolutely. It's a bit like that, isn't it? It's like
how? I don't understand it.
Yeah, why?
Okay, and that round was it was quite safe. It was quite tame for you as my guinea pig.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Thank you for that.
That's all right. Thanks for being my tester. And the last question that we ask every guest: what one quote inspires you, or that you strive to live by every day?
Really difficult because there's so many out there, some of which are well worn and we all know, and either have behind our desks or on our phone switch on screens or whatever. The thing that pops into my head every day is have fun, because there are challenging days. There are days when it all goes wrong. There are days when, a challenge is thrown up for you. when it's day 10 of a boat show, you've been away from home, living in a hotel room somewhere for however many days before that for build up and the start of the show. Your feet hurt and everything else. And you're thinking, I'd really like to just sit at my desk and do some work today. And the reality is you just go, I'm incredibly privileged to be doing this, and this is great, and let's have fun. And I think if you keep that ethos, even on the most challenging days, when perhaps you're having really unpleasant conversations because of something that's happened or things that need to be told to somebody, if you can remember to have fun somewhere along that line, it makes all of that bearable. And it means when you go home at the end of the day, you're a better person to be around as well, which is all pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I love the simplicity of it.
Yeah, I think, there's so many others we could all quote, but have fun. I love it. It's brilliant. So, Marcus, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate you coming on and, talking to us about, yourself and Arksen. So thank you so much. And it's been really great. No, not at all. Absolute pleasure to be here. And thanks for asking me. And as we said at the beginning, it's great to finally sit down and get this recorded. Yeah,
sure. Brilliant. Well, I'm sure I will see you soon at a boat show and we'll catch up again then.
Absolutely. Take care, Holly. Great to talk to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, then it would be awesome if you could leave a rating or a review. Don't forget to subscribe so you can listen to us again. See you soon.